we're going to take a quick look at the stance of Donald Trump.
Trust me, I'm like a smart person.
And the stance of Kamala Harris.
We did it. We did it, Joe.
And what they think about cannabis. Let's get to it. We're going to start off with Donald Trump's side of the cannabis debate. We're going to see what he has to say first. Donald Trump's stance on cannabis has been complex and somewhat contradictory over his political career, reflecting broader societal debates and shifting attitudes towards marijuana legalization. In the early stages of his political career, Trump expressed a somewhat mixed feeling on cannabis. In a 1990 interview, he mentioned that he was in favor of legalizing marijuana and suggested it could help combat crime and drug-related issues. However, as he transitioned to the presidency, his position seemed to shift towards a more traditional Republican viewpoint, which generally favors federal prohibition. During the 2016 presidential campaign, Trump largely avoided the topic of cannabis. His campaign seemed to focus on issues such as immigration, healthcare, and the economy, with marijuana legalization not being a central theme. However, his statements during the time suggested a degree of leniency towards states that had already legalized cannabis for recreational or medical use. Once in office, Trump's administration took a more hard-line approach. In January 2018, then Attorney General Jeff Sessions rescinded the Cole Memo, which had previously provided guidance to federal prosecutors to avoid interfering with state legal cannabis businesses. This move was seen as a direct threat to the bargaining cannabis industry, especially in states where marijuana was legalized. Sessions' actions sparked a significant backlash from both the public and lawmakers, particularly those from the states with legal cannabis markets. Despite this, Trump's stance on cannabis appeared to have some flexibility. He indicated support for states' rights to make their own decision regarding marijuana. In a 2019 interview, he stated that he would probably support legalization to protect states that had legalized cannabis. This approach highlighted his inclination to appeal to both conservative constituents and the growing pro-cannabis sentiment among voters. As the 2020 presidential election approached, though, the conversation around cannabis gained more prominence. Many Democrat candidates pushed for comprehensive marijuana reform, and public opinion continued to shift towards support for legalization. In response, Trump's administration sought to highlight its accomplishments in criminal justice reform, including the First Steps Act, which aimed to address sentencing disparities and nonviolent drug offenses. However, Trump himself did not prioritize cannabis reform during his re-election campaign. Instead, he focused on issues like the economy, the pandemic, and largely leaving the cannabis debate to other politicians. His campaign also attempted to paint his opponent Joe Biden as weak on crime, which indirectly affected how cannabis was discussed. After leaving office, Trump's public comments on cannabis have been limited. They have continued to reflect his previous mixed messaging. In various interviews, his appearances, he has reiterated his belief in states' rights regarding marijuana legalization. This suggests that while he may not champion cannabis reform actively, he recognizes the shifting landscape and the growing acceptance of cannabis use across the United States. Trump's evolving stance on the cannabis mirrors broader changes in America's public opinion. A significant majority of Americans now support legalization for recreational use, and many states have enacted their own laws, allowing medical and recreational cannabis. This shift is not only a reflection of changing attitudes towards drug use, but also a recognition of the potential economic benefits of a legal cannabis market, including job creation and tax revenue. The cannabis industry has become a significant economic force, and its growth may influence future political candidates, including potential presidential contenders from both parties. As public sentiment continues to favor legalization, political figures including Trump may find it increasingly difficult to maintain a strict prohibitive stance. Donald Trump's stance on cannabis has evolved from early support to a more cautious and ambiguous position during his presidency. While he has expressed some level of support for states' rights regarding marijuana, his administration's actions often contradict the sentiment. Moving forward, as societal attitudes continue to shift and the cannabis industry grows, Trump's views may also adapt, reflecting the broader political and economic landscape surrounding the cannabis legalization in the United States. Next up, we're going to go ahead and talk about the views of Kamala Harris when it comes to the legalization of cannabis. Let's get to it. The Vice President of the United States has had an evolving stance on cannabis throughout her political career. Her reviews reflect a broader societal shift towards marijuana legalization and a recognition of the need for criminal justice reform related to drug policies. Kamala Harris has began her career as a prosecutor in San Francisco and later served as the district attorney. During her early tenure, she adopted a tough-on-crime approach, which included the prosecution of drug offenses, including marijuana-related crimes. And in 2010, while for the role of Attorney General of California, she emphasized her commitment to public safety, which sometimes it included enforcing drug laws. The stance drew criticism, especially from advocates of marijuana reform who viewed it as a contradictory given the changing views on cannabis use. As Harris progressed in her political career, her views began to shift, particularly as a public sentiment towards cannabis evolved. By the time she became California's Attorney General in 2011, she had started to express support for more lenient policies regarding cannabis. She acknowledged the impact of marijuana laws on communities of color and began to advocate for reform aimed at addressing these disparities. In 2018, she co-sponsored the Marijuana Opportunity Reinvestment Expungement, or called the MORE Act, which aimed to decriminalize cannabis at the federal level and expunge the records of individuals with prior marijuana-related offenses. This marked a significant shift in her position and underscored her recognition of the need for social justice in the cannabis policy. During her 2020 presidential campaign, Harris made cannabis reform a prominent part of her platform. She proposed a comprehensive plan that included the decriminalization of marijuana, the expungement of prior convictions, and the investment of tax revenue from cannabis sales into communities adversely affected by the war on drugs. Her proposals also focused on addressing racial inequities in the cannabis industry, promoting marginalized communities in the legal marijuana market. Harris's campaign resonated with a significant portion of electorate, particularly younger voters and those advocating for social justice. Her visibility as a candidate who supports cannabis reform contributed to the overall conversation about marijuana legalization in the Democratic Party. As vice president, Kamala Harris continues to advocate for cannabis reform, although the Biden administration has taken a cautious approach to cannabis legalization. Harris has been vocal about her commitment to addressing the harms caused by the past drug policies. She has called for the decriminalization of marijuana and emphasized the importance of expunging the records for those affected by cannabis-related convictions. Harris's role in the administration includes working on broader criminal justice reform initiatives, while the administration has focused on issues such as police reform, drug sentencing laws. Cannabis reform remains a topic of interest. Harris's evolving stance on cannabis reflects the broader societal changes. Public support for marijuana legalization has surged in recent years, with polls indicating that a significant majority of Americans now favor legalization for recreational use. This shift has influenced policymakers, pushing them to reconsider outdated drug policies. Harris's commitment to cannabis reform aligns with the growing recognition of the economic potential for a legal cannabis market. Legalization not only provides opportunity for job creation and tax revenue, but also offers a pathway to rectify historical injustices related to drug enforcement. Despite her advocacy, Kamala Harris faces challenges in achieving comprehensive cannabis reform at the federal level. The Biden administration has been somewhat hesitant to prioritize marijuana legalization, focusing instead on other pressing issues. However, though, Harris's influence as vice president positions her as a advocate for reform within the administration. Dialogue around cannabis reform is likely to intensify as more states legalize marijuana and the public support continues to grow. Harris's advocacy for social justice and equity in cannabis industry may drive further legislative efforts, particularly as the midterm elections approach and the political landscape shifts. Kamala Harris's stance on cannabis has evolved from a tough on crime approach in her early career in her commitment to reform and social justice as vice president. She continues to advocate for the decriminalization of marijuana and the expungement of past convictions. Her journey reflects broader societal changes regarding the cannabis, positioning her as a key player in the ongoing discussion about marijuana legalization and the criminal justice reform in the United States. As public opinions continue to shift, Harris's influence may contribute to meaningful changes in the cannabis policy in the years to come. What's your thoughts on it? Comment down below. Tell me what you think about cannabis. Should it be legal, illegal? Have a good one. Thanks for watching. Take care.